The Denver Broncos are back in prime time, and the NFL has actually displayed that there's some level of intrigue and excitement with how the Denver Broncos season has been going the past couple of weeks because they have opted not to flex the Denver Broncos versus Minnesota Vikings in week 11 out of prime time. The Broncos were stuck on Monday Night Football no matter what against the Buffalo Bills. That couldn't be flexed out, but many pundits and analysts believed that the Denver Broncos would indeed be flexed out of prime time in this Sunday Night Football matchup. That's not happening. I'm surprised by this, and what it showcases to me is that the NFL is actually really intrigued by the Denver Broncos. That's what happens when you beat the Kansas City Chiefs in such a convincing fashion like the Denver Broncos did. Now, the NFL is going to be proven right or wrong next week when or this coming week, I should say, when the Broncos take on the Bills in Buffalo on Monday Night Football. That'll tell the NFL if they made the right decision keeping the Broncos on prime time. I'm definitely excited for this big test for the Broncos. I know that the national narrative is that the Broncos always play their worst football on prime time, but in reality, it felt like the Broncos last year especially were just playing bad football all year long, and it only got more exposed on a national primetime scale. And then, of course, this year we've only had one primetime game, and it was arguably our worst game of the season, our first matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was at least Russell Wilson's worst game of the season, and that, I feel like, put that whole national spotlight on that game, saying the Broncos continue to suck on prime time. Well, we've got a chance to dispel that narrative in these next two games. And if we look at our two opponents coming up, the Bills are more beatable than ever. They absolutely crapped the bed last night in Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football, and they've got a really tough stretch of games on their schedule. The Bills may view this game as a get-right game. I'm hoping that they kind of overlook the Denver Broncos as an opponent, much like the Kansas City Chiefs did, because the Broncos have proven that they will make you pay if that is what you do. And the following week, we've got the Minnesota Vikings, who will be starting Josh Dobbs in his third game, his second start as a Viking. I'm assuming it'll be Josh Dobbs. I don't see why they'd go back to Jaren Hall, the rookie, at this point. So those are two teams that, on paper, the Denver Broncos could beat, and they could go 2-0 in prime time in the next couple of weeks. At the very least, 1-1. I really feel like the Minnesota Vikings fall into that category of opponents that the Denver Broncos have to beat. And just to further go on my surprise that the Denver Broncos weren't flexed out of Sunday Night Football, this week, the Broncos, this week, the NFL chose not to flex out the Jets and the Raiders out of Sunday Night Football. That was a top flex candidate. So at that point, everyone was thinking, well, okay, the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings are probably going to get flexed out the following week. That didn't happen. And now if we come over here, there are really no more further flex candidates out of Sunday Night Football. No way that Niners and Seahawks is getting flexed out. Definitely not Ravens, Chargers. The only one that maybe would be the Chiefs and Packers, but I don't see them flexing Patrick Mahomes out of prime time. Eagles, Cowboys, definitely not getting flexed. Ravens, Jags, definitely not getting flexed. Bengals and Steelers, not getting flexed. Again, not getting flexed here. The only one that I could maybe see them using a flex on is Green Bay at Minnesota. But again, guys, I'm really, really surprised that the Denver Broncos weren't flexed out of prime time here. This was a top candidate to get flexed out of, and they didn't do it. So again, that tells me the NFL is actually intrigued right now with the Denver Broncos. We'll see if they are indeed proven right. All right, Broncos country, be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support, helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.